Hello, everyone. My name is Igor Tomych, and I'm CEO at DashDevs. And today, I'm really pleased to introduce Rainer Olt, who is the head of Payments and Settlement System Department at Eesti Pank. Hello, Rainer. How are you?
Hello, pleased to be here.
We have pretty great news and topic for you because this year, 2025, everyone is discussing about the blockchain, stablecoins, and one really important topic, which I think is out of sight, is digital euro. So today we're going to discuss what is it and how potentially it's going to be used in upcoming years. So we try to set up like the boundaries and the discussion during the podcast. And I think we should start with the defining why the digital euro is in discussion and in development and how it's going to be different from other instruments. Because even though there are a lot of blockchain networks, they propose in different points, sometimes native, sometimes hybrid. We have also the fiat, which is kind of digital nowadays because you're not touching the cash and you're operating within the balances purely virtually on your mobile phone. So please give us insights. What is it and how it's different from the tools that are available right now?
I will start with actually completely why we are focusing on digital euro and why now. I think there are three things that I would like to stress here. One, I think that's the most important one, is the fact that here in Europe we are in great dependence of global card schemes and payment solutions. If you take the euro area countries, then we have 13 countries who are fully dependent on the global card schemes. There are no national card schemes present. And if you look at the statistics, then 2/3 of card payments in the shops and in e-commerce are made in on those channels actually. And if you take then also the payment solutions, then Europe is also kind of dominated by really good services of Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, and the customers are really used to those. But here the second important point is that just imagine if those payment rails are not functioning. And in today's world, we are highly relying on those digital payment rails because the economy is mainly digital. And just disruption in those channels will result in hundreds and hundreds of millions of euros in non-executed transactions. And that will also impact all the businesses as well. The core reason why we are focusing on our sovereign payment rail, because and here this is let's say a comparison that I like to draw usually from, let's say, NATO as well. In Europe, we have realized that actually we have to defend ourselves also by ourselves. So that's really transferable to the field of payments, because payments are the lifeblood of economy. And there we also have to be, let's say, capable of standing on our own feet when it comes to business transactions. And I think in instant payments, we are already really well advanced in account-to-account payments. But if you look at how people pay in shops and in e-commerce, then there we actually don't have a good alternative. There have been really many attempts by the private sector in the past, over the past 2 decades. There are currently really promising ones. But the fact is that when we talk about instant payments, then all the banks in Europe are connected. But when we talk about payment solution in a shop or e-commerce, then this is really difficult to achieve because you have to connect all the shops, and then there are all kinds of different incentives come into play, and the investment required will make also for the private sector the offering to the shops really expensive. And then there we see, let's say, a critical kind of a market failure, if you like to say it like this, which requires intervention also by law. We have the digital euro regulation coming up being negotiated, which actually will establish digital euro as a digital legal tender, which will be acceptable in all shops all across the euro area. So that's the key, let's say, rationale and narrative that we are pursuing here in the euro area.
As Ukrainian, I totally understand how last 5 years showed how the world and the tools we think essential and non-negotiable are super fragile. So I understand why we have this economical and financial incentive. And it reminds me that maybe the era of internet coming into our life, because this last mile was really hard because you can have the optics, you can have all modern technology available within the specific city, but then making sure that the last mile is properly served to the customer is really hard. So in this case, I understand, and let's maybe slice it a little bit. When we say digital euro, are we talking about the existing financial infrastructure as a payments purely, or it's some kind of movement and hybrid solution with the blockchain networks? Because a lot of people are discussing the euro as a digital euro in blockchains, or what is your view here? Maybe it will exist in both ways.
That's a really good question, and I get the question also really frequently. But there is a misinterpretation or perception. I think that it will be a crypto digital euro, or that's the question being asked. But I have to say that's not the case in principle. We are building it on a completely new infrastructure indeed, that will connect, as I said, all the merchants, all the banks, and also, let's say, maybe the offline digital euro. There you could say that this is kind of using the new technology to store value in the phone and make it possible to transfer value between the smartphones and to the POS terminals. So it's kind of a combination. We are adapting and using the new technology and building new technology ourselves as much as required. But the core thing about money is also stability. So we want to use also those solutions and technologies which have proven to be really resilient and ensuring continuity of payments, because the smooth continuity of payments, that's our mandate. That's also adapting. The comparison also I would like to draw here is with cash, because the digital euro, it will be kind of digital cash. I think that's the easiest way how to make people grasp the concept and idea. And that also relates really strongly to the offline use of digital cash with the same characteristics as cash today. And then this will be set also by the legislation that up to a certain amount you can also make payments offline with full anonymity even. And then one important thing, because the new technology enables this and the setup how we design the infrastructure, it relates to privacy, because there are lots of talks about building a central system and then getting all the information into one place and then looking into it. We have it today. We have the card payment network. All that information goes through that. They do analysis and monetize the data. But for us as central banks, this is not the idea. And then just make sure that this is also, let's say, believed outside our circle. We have made sure that the information when you do a payment flows from if you do an online payment with your digital euro wallet, flows from your bank to the recipient bank. And this will not be passed through the central system. We will only see the general balances, how much digital euro has been issued and how much has been transferred between Bank A and Bank B. But the holdings and the, let's say, customer relation will remain with the banks, and also the information flows. I think that's really important to stress, that the digital euro will kind of mimic as much as possible the characteristics of cash. And now let's say, and you asked what's the difference between all the crypto or stablecoin solutions, all actually the funds that we have on our bank accounts. Then the difference is that as with cash, if you have the banknote in your hand, you can redeem it. It's your claim on the central bank. Similarly with digital euro, if you have your digital euro in your wallet, then it's always a claim on the central bank. If something happens to the bank, and God forbid that something happens, and there is also a deposit guarantee scheme up to 100,000 euros. But with digital euro, the idea and the resilience behind is that if even the bank is under, I don't know, a cyber attack, for instance, then the digital euro system will be running because it's independent. And we have also been designing it so that, and also the legislation, that in these kinds of times when the bank digital services are offline, then customers would be able to continue using digital euro. The idea is to keep the economy flowing and the payments flowing, because that's the basic services. Without those, we would have to start thinking about using cash, which we don't use anymore so much for our daily purchases. And if we don't have cash in our pockets, then it's also really difficult to get when there are disruptions. Just think about the incident Portugal and Spain with the electricity outages without anything. But But what we are trying to do on both sides, actually, those people who are used to digital means of payments could use them also when their service providers are offline. And also remind everyone continuously that for backup, just keep some cash with your cards and then some cash at home to make sure that you are well prepared for any crisis in principle.
Diversity is really important, and I really like this saying from IT. There are two types of people who are doing backups and who are already doing backups. So it's come from experience, and I really feel like the problem that the digital euro is facing is really complex and diverse, because in one way it should be functioning offline as some kind of token as a cash, because we used to cash for centuries and it's usual token. So something is granted which doesn't have the custodial. So basically someone who is holding the banknote can claim it. And when we're talking about the digital product, whatever we see on our screens, it's purely virtual, because as soon as internet connection goes down, you don't know how much you have on your account. You are not able to do any actions offline, online, because there is no connection. Everything is happening behind the scenes, under the hood, on the backends of system. I'm technology guy, and I used to be an engineer, so I'm pretty interested in the mechanism under this complex system, because usually the limitations and advantages, pros and cons, they defined by the technology that is going to be used for that. And when we're talking about like the virtual balances or ledgers with the MEI, the regulation just saying, okay, you need to have the core banking system, which is somehow is integrated in banking rails. But does it mean that new regulations and new requirements will come into the license institution to be properly supporting the digital cash? Because it feels like totally another level of technology required for that.
That's a really important question, in particular to the market stakeholders, because there have been several assessments assessing how much would it cost for the banks or payment service providers in general to start offering digital euro, because by law the banks will be obliged. And here, since the beginning, and that has been done in dialogue with the banking community, when we were discussing let's say the design of the digital euro scheme and everything, and the flows, that basically the banks can reuse all what they have built for instant payments. So basically, if we take a really simple comparison, if currently banks do, I don't know, Apple Pay wallet integration, then they just API connect their systems to that one. Similarly, with digital euro, they can use the digital euro app and the system infrastructure behind, connect to that one, their let's say accounting system, and also all the screenings, AML, and know your customer checks. And then this really makes it easy for the banks to start offering digital euro. Of course, there will be also let's say upgrades in certain areas depending how the banks have designed their own systems. But this is for the banks to let's say analyze, because currently the 0.9 version of the rulebook is out there. Currently, the start or the preparation of the pilots is going on. If the banks are interested in joining up, then they can have a hands-on experience also. And as I said, the banks can use the digital euro wallet that is provided by the Eurosystem, which expenses we cover in general, or they can integrate the digital euro solution into their own mobile banking applications, or use a European provider. If we take the current market situation, then the example of France, Germany, Belgium, where there is a rollout of the European Payment Initiative Vero app, which builds on instant payment rails. The banks can also use that one because the idea is that the digital euro network, as I said in the beginning, that will connect also all the merchants, which is a hustle for the European providers currently, because it's really difficult to compete with the card schemes with the pricing because you will have to do all the connections, and that requires lots of investment. But if the digital euro is also compulsory for shops, so it's easier to connect. So that will provide the bridge and connect, let's say, the current European players to all European merchants. And that's, I think, something that has been not maybe fully acknowledged by the market stakeholders, because in principle, because the debate has been that digital euro is kind of competing with the European players and taking the share from them, but it's on the contrary. Because the European players have built the let's say front end solution. They are offering it to the banks and providing also acquiring services for the merchants. Currently, they are building on the instant payment rail, which is also, let's say, not free of charge, because at the central bank we also charge 2 euro cents per each transaction. And that will be added actually to the end customer offering at the end of the day. But now, if you take the digital euro rail, then this will be a public infrastructure, a public service provided by us, free of charge. Then you think about the facts that, okay, the current instant payment rail indeed connects all the banks and all the customers for person-to-person payments, but not for point of sale and e-commerce, where you actually can get some acquiring fees. And digital euro offers also the connection to the merchants, and the digital euro doesn't have any fees on the infrastructure, nor does it for the scheme use. Logically, I think that's a good, let's say, basis for the European players to be more competitive towards the global card schemes. And then we have, let's say, the vision is that at the end of the day, we have at the shops we have cash. In some shops where they accept cash still, we have the card rail, and we have also, let's say, the European payment rail, which maybe in France it can function on instant payments because they have already set it up. But with the Vero app, let's say, to pay in Estonia, maybe this will run on the digital euro rail. At the end of the day, the French customer is happy that they can pay in Tallinn. And also Vero and the banks, the French banks, are happy because they will get the acquiring fee from the Estonian merchant. And then it's let's say, between the issuing bank providing the wallet to the customer and Vero itself to agree how much then will go to the solution provider, the European solution provider, and how much will actually the bank get. So that's, I think, how we have, let's say, designed it, and how we are trying to kind of also communicate it. And I hope that in the piloting, we will also see practical tests with the European players as well.
For our listeners, I would like to stress that when we tend to think about the payments, it seems to be pretty simple. Like, I have my card, tap to pay, or on phone, I'm just touching the terminal and everything magically happens. But for real, it's a pretty complex process with a lot of layers, with the decision making, with acquiring, interchange fee between different stakeholders, even though you might have the card issued in one bank and another one is working as acquirer and accepting the funds. There is definitely an incentive on the financial side, and it feels like the change maybe from wired telephone for the cell phone. Yes, we're going to kind of get the same service. We will be able to connect to different payment sources, like I'm sending the money, you're receiving, but under the hood is going to be completely different infrastructure. I haven't properly connecting because still you're able to phone or dial from your cell phone to the landline and vice versa. So kind of the same that I assume we're trying to build here with the digital euro. And another interesting moment that is, for me, once again, from technical perspective, a lot of complexity in the payment terminals comes from the certification and really hard push to enable mobile devices as acquiring device, because that's one of the maybe revenue line for the card networks, because you have the hardware producers who are producing the point of sale terminals, and then by using the physical devices, you are able to acquire the card. But for last 2 or 3 years, we see that there is a lot of push to enable mobile devices to read the NFC. And when we're talking about the digital product right now, the QR code or some kind of screen-by-screen communication, because almost all the phones, they have camera, all the phones or devices, digital devices, they have the screen. So we technically can share some information, not by using the hardware. Is the digital euro is having in the workflow an ability to make easier access to merchants for acquiring, because that's usually the bottleneck, if I can say it like that.
First of all, we are benchmarking for sure against the best practices that we are used to today. And in the shops, it's, the standard indeed is that you just tap and go. And that's the objective for us as well. At the end, we have this kind of a service level in the shops. And as I said, as it will be obliged for merchants to accept digital euro, this also means that there will be solutions offered by the banks for the merchants. And there, I can assure that for the merchant, it should be relatively easy because the same payment service provider who today provides acquiring of card payments will also make sure that with the same devices, the merchant can also accept digital euro payments. With the exception that these devices will be also made capable of accepting offline digital euro in cases of disruption. So that's I think really an important thing to note, and also how the digital euro will be immediate payment. Your account will be credited immediately, but some merchants corporates in Europe, let's say their systems will not handle maybe the traffic when each individual payment will be credited on their account and has to be processed within their systems immediately. That's why there will be also this solution kind of similar to card payments today, that you will pile up a certain amount of digital euro payments, which will be then transferred on your account and processed in your systems. But you will get the immediate notifications in the background. In general, let's say the digital euro scheme will be relatively similar to how we, it's a combination. If you take the by instant payment scheme and the card schemes, and you put them together, then this is what digital euro will be about. Having benefits from both sides, faster crediting of funds on the accounts. That's important for the smaller merchants in particular, and also the security and also the offline functionality there, which is I think for in today's world really important, because we see relatively regularly that also the card rails is being disrupted. It's not from the central system. It's more because of the kind of cyber attacks or even technical glitches, whatever, on the acquiring banks, and that brings the system down, and then you see all the transactions being or abandoned, which is kind of not really good for the society. As I said, 1 hour disruption, let's say only in Estonia. Okay, Estonia is a really small country that will result in almost 1 million euro loss in revenue, so to say, for the businesses. If you take this at the European scale, then you will end up with, as I said, hundreds of millions. So it's quite a huge impact. And the thing is also that, because when I said that we are doing it because of sovereignty and also resilience, the fact is that digital euro will function only in case of emergencies when people use it on a daily basis. Because if you don't have digital euro on your account or in your wallet, then you cannot use it when your banking services are being disrupted. We cannot switch, or we can switch you to digital euro, but if you don't have any money, then it's difficult to use it. Of course, let's say there are different kinds of plans, or the countries in Europe are at a different level here, closer to the, let's say, Russian border. We are preparing ourselves in those areas so that even if the banks are not functioning, then we can use today we can use offline card payments, for instance. Already we have backup solutions. What is important to note that is from the Estonian perspective, the digital euro payment rail and the solution will provide us, this kind of backbone on which we can also design our countries or state national emergency solution, so that if we today without digital euro have the option only to start distributing cash, let's say through different, let's say, municipalities, or
Mhm.
just hand out some cash to so that people can survive if the banking services are not functioning. Then this actually requires lots of security. It's really expensive, but in these kinds of crises, the expenses are not the problem. I think it's the security, and the question is whether you will have enough security, because people come to one place, and then when you start handing out cash, people are too nervous, excited, and then whatever can happen. The good thing is that the Estonian people are really calm in nature. So, and with digital euro, actually, we can also design it so that we can pay out some benefits on the digital euro account. Because if you talk about the use cases, which I didn't mention before, it is person-to-person payment, person-to-merchant payments, and it's also payments from the government and to the government. So basically, the government would also kind of top up the online digital euro account, or also if the online system is not functioning, basically it's possible to imagine that the government is topping up digital euro on the smart devices. So that's I think the huge benefit. But the bottom line is that for that to function, we will need all the, let's say, legal framework, which is kind of there, and then making it possible. We will need to have the online, offline digital euro in general, connecting Europe in a way which we haven't seen from the private sector yet. And this has to be used on a daily basis. Then we have achieved, the objective of Europe being strategically autonomous, standing on its own feet when it comes to digital payments.
It reminds me of the situation with Wirecard, because when it's too late, it's too late. You cannot do something in critical situations. So the system should have redundancy. And personally, I've been running the project in the United Kingdom, and despite of Wirecard issues in the European Union, in Germany, the Wirecard United Kingdom has been disabled for a day or something by the regulator. And it means that the card scheme, even though we were not connected to Wirecard in any way, we just had the BIN, which is under the range, which issued by Wirecard, the payment stopped. So people literally could not use our card for going into the underground in London, which is a big stress and big damage for the brand, because it affects. So I think it's one of the key takeaway for today's episode, that we are planning way ahead with the digital euro. It's not just bringing something to the market, is to see what are the risks and challenges that we have nowadays, and design the system which will help us to eliminate those risks. It doesn't mean that it will cover 100%, but it will be the rails which are enabling it. And it will be in customers, even in customers' ability to backbone with the different, as a digital euro, to have the backup plan if something goes wrong. And you mentioned one interesting thing, and I have maybe two questions, and then we can wrap up this episode. So you mentioned that we can take a look on the digital euro as a kind of hybrid between card scheme and the SEPA, but both are lacking really good offline functionality, because basically when we're talking about the card payments offline, it's just the limitation with no real trust, because no transaction is happening. We just store in okay, I trust Igor good enough to spend, 30 euros on the flight on the, some low cost to buy something, because we don't know how much money he has on the card. And in this case, the balance will go into minus if I don't have any balance, because Fairly is not checking the balance. It's not tokenization. But what I can hear, that the digital euro is truly tokenized and transferable in offline currencies. So how it's achieved? Because SEPA seems to be lacking this possibility, and the card networks are missing it too.
Yeah, indeed, and that's innovation and new technology that we are creating, or we are calling the providers of digital euro to create. And I have seen also and tested it myself to do offline payments, and that's really amazing in that way, that actually that eliminates the risk, the credit risk that is in the card rails today. And in the past, offline card payments, that's not a new thing. It's really a thing from the past. Maybe now the technology is more advanced to mitigate risks associated, and to control the environment more, to put some limits and so on the chip, because the chip and POS terminals are interacting between each other. But still, the key issue why we don't see, let's say, broad usage of offline card payments in the market is the credit risk, because The banks don't want to take it, they want to pass it on merchants, then the merchants don't want to take it. In Estonia, we regulated it so that the merchant don't have a credit risk. You can use offline card payments for critical purchases, for food, fuel, and medicine. But it's really a limited. It's a small band-aid on this. But digital euro will be functioning as a digital means, and then it will circulate between the devices. It not let's say that there will be also technical limits. Digital euro is not meant to be offline only. It's a, let's say, connection. If the connections are resumed or restored, and the bank services are restored, then everything goes again online. So it's kind of it will be a really nice hybrid system in that sense. But for users, they have to bear in mind that if they store some value on the phone, and if they lose the phone, then actually this value on the phone cannot be retrieved, because it's kind of you lost your cash, but you lost your digital cash. It's another matter if someone, I have 3 children. If my child breaks the phone, and actually the digital euros will be stored on the smart or on the secure element of the phone. Of course, it's obvious we have to figure out whether we can retrieve it. But again, these things are. That's the innovation part of the project, where we create something that has not been there, and which we can actually not expect from the market, let's say private solutions to come up with, because there will be always different kinds of issues there, in particular trust issues, I would say.
And that's true. And in this case, I have an interesting thought, because it feels that the most advanced technology is aiming for offline usage too. Because we saw this shift of the world from offline tools as a cash. All our life was in physical world. We shifted into the digital. And right now, the perception and understanding that we cannot live digital only. We should have balanced world, which is supporting the offline and online in a balanced way. It means that transaction can happen in offline and in online. So it's really good takeaway. Thank you so much. And maybe the last question that I have for today, there is a lot of things that you discussed, highlighted to us, but where is the project? What are the key points that are happening? Because maybe a lot of our listeners would like to test and understand when they can have this nice technology in their hands and try it out. So what are the key points for this project right now?
That's indeed really important to understand the timeline and the decisions needed still before it's possible to use digital euro. First off, about the legislation, and then here the European Council has agreed on their common stance, and the European Parliament is negotiating internally for their common position, so that actually the trialogues or the legislation process can continue. Because before we have, or without the legislation, we cannot issue digital euro into circulation. That's a given. Despite the fact that this is the process is ongoing, and let's say there are hopes that maybe by the end of this year or maybe sometime next year this will be finalized. And that if this happens, then the timeline is that we would be able to issue digital euro from 2029. So to launch it, but for that, because it's relatively it's only 3 years, and in the meanwhile we are actually continuing. I already mentioned that currently there is a process of banks applying to participate in the digital euro piloting. The pilots will start actually next year, and this is for us just to get the entire system ready. So we are doing that in the background already, so that if the legislation is confirmed or adopted, then we can let's say push it out really quickly. And that means actually for the banking sector that they already should really seriously take the scheme rule book and assess internally and plan for their IT projects. And what we have been discussing in Estonia, and then mentioning or noting to the market that it definitely makes sense to consider the standalone apps, be it in the Eurosystem one or the one that the European providers can offer. Of course, the apps offered by the European providers, these enable more, let's say, value-added services, definitely. But the rationale from our side is that if the application is independent from the bank's own digital channels, and application, then this provides more resilience because in times of crisis, then the customer can, of course, switch to another bank, or there is the possibility to switch to the, let's say, national emergency solution. So, and then the key there is that we don't want to give the message out there that customers of Bank A, please start using Bank B because your bank is under, let's say, stress currently and has to recover, because that is not good for the financial stability. Because what we want to actually achieve is that the people can, as smoothly as possible, continue digital payments. Bank recovers in the background, and the customers continue using the bank's services as well. And the trust in the banking system, that is key for us, because we don't want people transferring all, let's say, their funds or to the digital euro, because we want to keep the funds actually in the banking system. That's why we didn't discuss it earlier, but that's why we'll also have certain holding limits on digital euro, that in particular times of stress, you could not start a bank run into digital euro. That's I think also an important point to stress, and definitely this is another good topic to discuss even further.
Planning and having the infrastructure and the system designed with the redundancy, with the resilience, is really hard work. It's so easy to go through the success path, like even with the payments, do something that works, but the complexity and usually the advantage is that the system is advanced enough to handle the edge cases, to handle all those things that might not happen every day, but then the system is resilient because it can handle those items once, twice per year, but still function as expected. So thank you for the really interesting discussion. Personally, I just find out a lot of new things for myself, and I'm really pleased that you explained so well for our listeners. And for everyone who listened to us till the end, please subscribe, please comment in our social networks, LinkedIn and YouTube. We will be glad to have your questions and answer them. I hope you have some around the digital euro and the upcoming plans. And thank you, Rainer, once again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise.